pointed to this record in wage growth.
Yeah.
But we heard one of the reporters shout to him as he was walking out, but what about inflation? Something the president did not address in this speech. We know wages have gone up, but not as much as inflation. So put these numbers into context for us.
And that's on everybody's mind, especially voters, as they're going to be voting in the midterm elections. So wages went up pretty healthy over the past year, up about 5.5%, but inflation outstripped that, now at a 40-year high of nearly 8%. So our dollar doesn't have the same power it held just a year ago, and we're starting to see our household spending is starting to pull back a little bit as people now think, well, do I really need to take that trip? Do I really need to go out to a restaurant tonight? And they're going to start rethinking that as the months go on.
All right, welcome back to WWTA News, what we talk about news. We've got some articles to get through. We're going to jump right in, but before we do, could I get you to hit that like and subscribe button? Now, let's jump right into our articles. We've got the first one. It says, U.S. companies must disclose customer crypto holdings, says the SEC. The SEC will require companies holding users' crypto to account for those assets, clearly disclosing their nature and amount. I wonder if that would include the banks that are now allowed to hold cryptos as well. Okay, so let's get into this article. United States listed companies that act as custodians of cryptocurrencies on behalf of their users. That would include banks now, wouldn't it? Because we did just go through an article where the banks in Virginia are now allowed to hold or be custodians of their clients' money, crypto. So I guess this might be directly in line as far as it goes with the banks that are now getting the right to do this, right? So let's continue. It says, U.S. listed companies that act as custodians of cryptocurrencies on behalf of their users should account for those assets as liabilities and warn investors about the associated risk. The United States Securities and Exchange Commission said on Thursday the new guidance will apply to traditional firms such as banks or retail brokers that custody cryptocurrencies for their clients or provide other related services, as well as to crypto exchanges. So we already knew that crypto exchanges dealt with crypto, but again, banks and states are slowly coming online to be able to custody cryptos for their clients that hold their money, amongst other things, in their banks. So yeah, I definitely know what's going on with this one. In a new accounting bulletin, the SEC said that the arrangements associated with digital currencies, such as the requirement to maintain the private keys to access the funds, involve unique risks and uncertainties. And that's a true statement. We'll probably talk about that once we get to this article. Those risks are different from the risk associated with the arrangements performed to safeguard traditional assets, and include technological, legal, and regulatory risk and uncertainties. Okay. The agency added that companies that custody crypto may not be complying with regulatory requirements that do apply, which results in increased risk to investors in these entities. Since these risks can have a significant impact on companies' operations and financial conditions, companies should clearly disclose the nature and amount of crypto assets they are holding. Each significant crypto asset should be accounted for at fair value and have separate disclosures along with any vulnerabilities resulting from such activities. Okay, that's a pretty hefty one. It says also SEC Chairman Gary Gensler has previously warned that cryptocurrency exchanges such as Coinbase have dozens of tokens that may be securities. In other words, investors effectively make unsecured loans to those companies. Right, so Gary, Mr. Gensler, yeah. I mean, you know, we have to understand how that works and know what we're doing. You don't just get into the space to start throwing money left and right, don't know what you're getting into. So obviously Mr. Gensler could be speaking a little bit truth in regards to that matter, and so that risk falls on you. Now, in regards to these companies or banks, right, pretty much banks, they clearly said banks and exchanges, as well as What was the other one they said? What was the other one that they mentioned? It was, one second, let me get it. It was brokers, right? Brokers. So clearly, all of those, when we talk about cryptocurrencies, the exchange has not really promised or insured anybody's cryptocurrency on their exchange. And when you put your money on exchange, what you're doing is you're putting it in a account of theirs or a wallet of theirs, depending. I know that to have a direct location, there's usually, when you talk about Stellar, Lumens and stuff, and a few other ones, there's also along with that address is another set of numbers, and those the other set of numbers is a direct address into the exchange. Now, for the most part, especially when we talk Ethereum, you're putting those currencies in a wallet that belongs to that exchange, and they're keeping up with that stuff. Anyway, how you look at it, doesn't matter. It's now in their possession and under their protection. Now, none of these exchanges have said they insure any of the cryptocurrencies that you put in there, so you're doing it at your own risk. So again, that's a true statement. And as more people come on board and start getting into this space, especially now that banks can custody, again, they have to figure out a way to ensure that currency as well. Now, when we talk about the securities that Mr. Gensler is describing, you could be acting as an investor if, what do they call it? Initial coin offerings, ICOs and IPOs. And when they do that stuff, they're literally telling you ahead of time, we're doing a initial coin offering, which is going to give you XYZ, and it's to help us get this off the ground. And so they literally, most companies state that. But when you go to an exchange and you then pick up currencies, you're not dealing with an ICO or an IPO, because those are directly from a group of people, a business or a company, and that does act like a security. So Mr. Gensler is telling us that we need to pay attention to how we're moving in that space and know exactly what we're dealing with. Now, again, when you go to an exchange, and I'm not financial advisor, all this stuff is new. I'm just basing my understanding on what I've been doing and on the research that I've been doing to find out. But when you go to an exchange, the exchanges have initially picked up these currencies or securities, however it's described. They've picked these things up, and then you're going through the exchange to get what they have. And this is why I also find it interesting that now banks can custody cryptocurrency, because that does open a door that can make it easy for them to become an exchange as well. All they would have to do is custody enough or purchase enough of these currencies and then bring them into their wallet for their bank, and then you'd be able to exchange with them too. As a customer, you'd be able to do that. And I kind of suspected that could possibly happen, but we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. So anyways, we have to have legislation. I mean, people probably think that it's crazy that, we do something like that. Oh, it's no longer decentralized. Well, look at decentralized or DeFi exchanges right now. Look at how many hacks PancakeSwap has and Uniswap has. I mean, I know a lot of you people really have good intentions, but your good intentions will make you look dumb, because there's bad actors, and bad actors, they're trying to rob you, and they're not even directly trying to rob you. They don't know you. They're just trying to get rich, so they're doing what they have to do, criminal acts, and that stuff happens. And so because those things happen, you do need some form of legislation and regulation on this stuff, and so it has to be done so that people can be protected. Now, could it be bad? Possible. It could possibly be bad, but I can't really speak on anything that hasn't been done yet. And all I can say is a lot of people are getting hustled, scammed, swindled, and losing their life savings, thinking that they're going to grow in value and have a better future. So, true statement. They're telling you some real stuff, and you need to be aware when you're moving around in that space. Ask questions, make friends with people, get into rooms of people that know what they're talking about, and learn from them, and don't just trust anybody. I'm telling you my thoughts and opinions on things, but don't take my word for anything. You should question anything that I bring up, especially when we're reading articles. Go pull the article up yourself, type it in the search and pull it up. And then, you can always share input on what you think that you got from when you read it yourself, All right, now let's move to the next article because that right there took a hot minute. Biden announces largest release of oil reserves in effort to curb gasoline prices. All right, so why would he do such a thing? I don't know. Joe Biden has announced plans to release up to 1 million barrels of oil a day from the strategic reserve in an attempt to contain high gasoline prices and curb inflation exacerbated by the war in Ukraine. Okay, we'll go with that. Let's ride this out. The administration is reportedly considering extending the release for as long as 6 months, with a potential limit of 180 million barrels drawn from the current national reserve of 568 million barrels. So 568 million barrels is their reserves, and they're going to potentially withdraw 180 million to supply petroleum. Okay, got that. Yeah. So I don't know. We kind of have a situation here. And I would say the situation that we have here is the economy's kind of going sideways, and we have cryptocurrency showing itself as a way to catch yourself as the, I guess, ship begins to sink. And a lot of things are pointing in that direction, especially when we look at the Ukraine-Russia ordeal and things that have happened before that. I mean, I know they're putting a lot of press on that situation, but this really didn't cause problems. You got to remember, we were cutting ties with Saudi Arabia a while back, weren't we? We were withdrawing troops a while back, and we did. We had trade issues with China before all this happened. We had trade issues with Russia before all this happened. So it's not anything new. It's something that's been coming. It's been a long time coming. And I think we're just in the middle of it actually physically happening right before our eyes. This channel, we talk about finance, the economy, and crypto, and electric cash or electric money to say. But it's important that you start paying closer attention to some of these things going on and then preparing, because I can't tell you that anything is going to save you, because there's no way of knowing that. A lot of people say get gold, get silver, have metals. A lot of people say, oh, pull your money out the bank and store it because you're going to need it. A lot of people say bulk up on items that you can sell. So it's who really knows, but nonetheless, something's happening. We can point fingers all day, but something's truly happening, and you just have to pick a direction and go in it. I like I said, for this channel, we're talking about economy, finance, and crypto, and so you hear a lot of crypto talk or electronic cash and electronic money on this channel, and mainly because that's the direction that I move in. I'm moving a few other directions, and it's going to be on you to figure out the best way for you to handle this. But as long as information is out there being released, I'm going to share it, and I hope that you can take this information and start making decisions for your future that will best suit you and yours to make your moves. So I don't know, it just looks like we're in a bind, and it's time to start thinking about what we're really going to do, and do it. Don't think too much longer. We're in the midst of something. You just need to do something. Whatever it is, you need to do it. All right, so I'm gonna close with that, and to the next one.
Index of agriculture and fisheries products imported into South Korea jumped more than 30% on year in February, according to the Korea Trade Statistics Promotion Institute on Monday. This is the third straight month with the index rising. The average price of crops, vegetables and fruit soared 33.3%, while meat and fishery products jumped 36.7% and 13.5% respectively. Experts.
Three main speakers for the Federal Reserve Board, where they are, where they're heading. And he had a lot to say in remarks at Princeton University over the weekend, starting with balance sheet runoff. Remember, this is another way for the Fed to tighten policy besides rate hikes. He said it could come as soon as the Fed's May 3-4 meeting. He's echoed Jay Powell. He's echoed Esther George from the Kansas City Fed, Jim Bullard from the St. Louis Fed. Important, though, to see that John Williams is on board as well. And he reminds us that this is kind of a second channel, balance sheet runoff. When you buy bonds, you stimulate. When you start letting them run off the balance sheet and shrink it, that is removal of stimulus. It's the opposite direction. That's what the Fed needs to do. And he said that it's because the Fed has to address a level of inflation that has become, quote, particularly acute. Isn't that obvious? Just ask President Biden. Let's move on to Mary Daly, President.